why ketones? Why does our body make these? What do they do? What's the importance of them? So when we think about the energy that our body uses to fuel everything that it does, we kind of think of two major sources of energy. We have fats and carbohydrates. Now, protein is also a really important energy source, but it is secondary to fat and carbohydrate because protein first is used to replenish amino acid pools in our body. So we know that carbohydrate in the diet gets broken down into something called glucose, and we know that fats in the diet get broken down into something called fatty acids, or under very specific conditions, ketones as well. And then these molecules kind of enter this very complex metabolic system where it converts those molecules into something we call ATP. And that's basically the way that our cell utilizes energy. So it's the energy currency of the cell. So when we're talking about making ketones from fats, and we talk about ketogenesis, the creation or production of ketones in our own bodies, well, that basically happens when we have suppressed glucose and insulin. And when that occurs, we start breaking down fats, either from fats that are coming in from our diets or from our stored fats, and they go to the liver, and some of that gets converted into these molecules called ketones. So typically, if someone's eating like a standard kind of even moderately high carbohydrate diet, most of the energy in your body is being run off of glucose, and that includes the brain. Now, if the brain was really only able to use glucose, this would be a big problem because we don't store a whole lot of glucose in our body as fuel. We have some, that's what glycogen is, and we have some in our skeletal muscle and in our liver, and that's a backup source of glucose, but it really only persists or provides ample glucose to support the brain for maybe a day or so after we stop eating. But we have excess fat stores, so fat is the major storage form of energy in our body. Now, this is fine. Breaking down fats directly into these fatty acids is perfectly fine for most of our body, but the brain not so much. So there had to be a way around it, and really ketones are the answer to that problem. So fats can be converted to ketones, and ketones are very efficient fuels for the brain. And this is important because if the brain could not utilize ketones, if we couldn't convert that fat into ketones for the brain to use, we would have to resort to breaking down our skeletal muscle to release proteins that can be converted to glucose to fuel the brain, which means that we would starve within maybe 2 to 3 weeks. But because of this adaptation, humans can actually go on average 2 to 3 months without food, and depending on the amount of fat that's stored in the body, can go even much longer. I always find it interesting that even today you hear people say that glucose is the only thing the brain can use. It's not true at all, and we've known about that for a very long time.